Good afternoon, everyone. We would like to welcome you to our Cedar Feeder Calf Show. Class 1, we have one entry with Nathan Bernadowicz, with a calf weighing 451.
Young man brings us a really nice green black boy calf out here, but one that I think has definitely a bright future as he progresses forward. One that I think certainly ties in fairly smooth and balanced when we study in terms of how that neck joins into that shoulder and how he opens up behind that shoulder in terms of his rib shape. I think he's adequate in terms of his muscle shape. Again, he's a green calf at the moment, but I think as we're really studying, as he gets out and moves, certainly we like him down the ground. I think he's got some flexibility and he follows up on his tracks.
First place went to Nathan Bernadowicz. Class 2, we have Laura Simple with a calf weighing 539. Easton Hayes with a calf weighing 546.
I'm going to go ahead and let them stand as they are. I'm going to start out with the young lady's white bark influence. unassuming, one that certainly has an attractive profile to him. Really a smooth made, balanced kind of a calf that's maybe a little bit further along his growth pattern in comparison to our second place individual. We really like him in terms of he's got that smoothness and extension to that front 1/3. He's very smooth shoulder. I really like him from the shoulder back. We're going to talk about a calf that's got some power in his top that still comes forth and rolls out that spine. In terms of his rib shape, he's very unique in terms of being very adequate in terms of his depth of body. He's one that as you step in behind him, again, carries forth a lot of natural shape down his top into a big square hip. I like how his tail head sets in. When you ask this one to move out, I really like how he gets out. I think he really stretches and reaches and really follows up quite nicely. The other lady's calf coming in second, really green kind of a calf. I think one that's a little bit bigger in the spring scale than compared to the, but one that I think still put together, fairly balanced in terms of being smooth shoulder. Certainly maybe a little tighter in terms of that rib cage, in terms of that forerib. But certainly he's one that brings forth some natural shape and dimension, really a long spine kind of an individual. Just like to see this one maybe just be a little bit longer hip, like to set that tail heading down in just a little bit easier overall. And certainly in terms of his feet and leg structure, I'd like to see this one just kind of have a little bit more bend and flex coming off of that rear legs for me here.
First place went to Laura Simple. Second place, Easton Hayes. Class 3, we have one entry of PG Show Cattle with a calf weighing 638.
I need that.
Just a single entry in our third class here. One that I think certainly, we talk about one that's got some elevation and structural integrity. Certainly a fairly big frame kind of a calf that I think still has some balance and myopia from the side profile. He's got some smoothness and extension to that front third. For me, maybe he just kind of closes up just a hair right there behind that shoulder up high and that rib cage, but certainly he's one that has some rib shape, has some depth of body, has some natural width as we step in behind him. Again, he's one that maybe we just like to pick him up in terms of his pin set just a little bit, but overall that's being pretty picky on this calf. So, but a calf that I think too that just kind of gets out and really gets around the ring quite easily.
First place went to PG Show Cattle. We're ready to select your champion. Vito Steer Calf. We need back in the ring Nathan Bernardowicz, Laura Simple, and PG Show Cattle.
three calves out here in your feeder calf drive. Certainly each of them have a little bit of different makeup, a little bit further to the growth pattern at the moment. The young man's baldy calf, one that's lighter and green, certainly still yet has that balance. I feel from the side, we really like him in terms of how long and extended that front 1/3 is. He's still a fairly smooth shoulder. He's got some rib shape and some natural width and power as you step in behind him. The young lady's white pork influence calf, a really one that's got a lot of style from the side. We still like this one in terms of just how natural that neck ties into that shoulder and how smooth he is. He's one that we really admire in terms of how soft in that middle 1/3 is. He expands out of that top of that spine. How we like him. He's got some width and power as we step in behind. He really squares up nice in his hip structure. The young lady's calf coming out of the third one that I talked about, certainly being a little bit larger scale in terms of frame. One that certainly maybe just kind of closes up right there behind that shoulder in terms of his rib shape, but one that's got some natural width and power. Certainly one as he progresses, he's going to make it easily into that 1,400-pound marketable weight, but one that, again, just some things that I'd like to change overall about it. For me, I like the white pork influence calf as your champion, and then the young lady's feeder calf as your young man brings us probably a fairly freshly weaned calf here into the ring. One that certainly has some style to him, he's pruned up with that he's got and stuff. I think as we really study this one, he's got the bits and pieces that we're looking for. Certainly he's got some leanness and extension to that front 1/3. Certainly he's a little bit more open at this stage in terms of his shoulder, but that's due to being really green and needing more feed at this time. But really, when we study, here's a calf that's got some rib shape. I think he's got some buildability in terms of being an easy feeder. Certainly he's one that's got some squareness about his hip. He's a solid-footed, big bone kind of a calf, and I think he's got a bright future.
First place went to Stephen Hauser. Class 4, we have 3 entries. Lila Riley with a calf weighing 411. Colton Blamble with a calf weighing 443. Colby Hayes with a calf weighing 446.
Young lady brings us one that certainly is a little bit more modern in its overall design, but one that I think really has that fat steer kind of appearance even at this stage. One that I still lean and has some length front 1/3 and still ties in nice about that shoulder. I really like him in terms of his rib shape, the depth of body. He's one that too, I think that as we step in behind, he carries a lot of natural dimension down his top and into his loins. Really a big square hip kind of a calf that I think as we study him, as he gets around the ring, still gets out and has a lot of flexibility. The young man's calf, one that certainly has a little bit more scale and frame in comparison to the young lady's calf that we're using to lead off. One that's maybe just a little bit greener in his overall makeup. We really like this calf, in terms of that length and extension, the smooth shoulder. He's maybe just a little bit more tubular about that center 1/3, just like to maybe soften him up a little bit, and that could come with time. But he's a long-spined individual that certainly has a lot of shape down his top. For me, just like to lengthen him out about his hip structure. Open him up about his pin set a little bit, but certainly he's a calf that I think has some ease and flexibility. Young man's red calf, certainly one that I think has some angles to it. We really admire this one in terms of his rib shape and his depth of body. For me, he doesn't balance up quite as neat as the top two individuals. When we say about how his neck ties into his shoulder, it just kind of isn't as balanced overall. He opens up with some rib shape. He's got some natural width down his top. He just gets a little flatter as you step in behind him all the way to the ground. He just doesn't reach and get it out. He wants to have a tendency off those rear legs to kind of push out to the outside. Those are the calf with a lot of future.
First place went to Lila Riley. Second place, Colby Hayes. Third place, Colby Flynn. Class 5, we have 5 entries. Vera Strasser with a calf weighing 456. Emily Witt with a calf weighing 466. Hayden Boyard with a calf weighing 477. Lena C with a calf weighing 481. And Emma Foreman with a calf weighing 497.
Starting this class off with a pretty hairy little rascal out here, you know, that's got a lot of eye appeal to him, the way he's pruned up. But I'll tell you, he's the one, he's the show steer looking calf. He's the one, you know, that's got that smoothness about him. He's got that length and extension. He's got that smooth shoulder. He's deep body, big rib kind of a calf that really carries forth a lot of shape and dimension. He's one with that big bone, big footed. Certainly, that's what we're looking for in terms of these show steers. He easily leads off this class. The young lady's calf, one that I think if we would go and we put the hair on this one, similar to our class winner, you know, there'd be a lot of difference in this one. Because as you really study, even being a slick shear, this one's really put together pretty smooth and balanced. You know, when we talk about the eye appeal, how long and lean that neck is, it comes out extremely high at the top of that shoulder. And he's one that just opens up into a nice, smooth rib cage with a long spine, and still yet has enough shape down his top and into a fairly stout hip. And that tail head sets down in. Certainly could be stouting him up down the ground. Yeah, we could give him a little bit more bone, a little bit more foot size. But I think he's one as he progresses forward and he's fed right. This one's going to be a pretty good steer. The young lady's calf coming out next. One that again, you know, has that look about him. He's got that length and extension to that front 1/3. He's really smooth shoulder. He's one that certainly gets a little bit weak in right there behind that shoulder, but he opens up and has a lot of power down his top into his loin. He's a big hip kind of a calf. Certainly I'd like to maybe see this one just come off of both ends just a little bit easier, but I think he follows up quite nicely. The young lady brings us a Hereford calf, one that, you know, again, I think comes together pretty nice. You know, doesn't have that overall show steer appearance like our couple in front of it. But, you know, one that I think still comes together with a lot of smoothness and some balance. Maybe just pinches a little bit more down in that lower forehead for me. But certainly he's adequate in terms of his hip shape and his depth of body. He's one that's got a big old loin in him. He's square hip. Certainly has some shape as he carries down into that lower portion of his top. You get him out on the move, he really squares up, and I think he really reaches and has a lot of flex. Rounding out this class is a black and white one of the young ladies. For me, this one's just a little bit coarser in his overall design. He has a tendency, as we watch him, he just doesn't have the angle in his shoulder. He must really push that scapula hard as he gets out and on the move. But certainly then he opens up, has some rib shape, has some depth of body. But certainly we'd like to just stout him up down his top as he just kind of gets a little bit pinched out over that loin edge and just kind of narrows up into his tail set.
First place went to Caden Boyer. Second place, Lena C. Third place, Vera Strasser. Fourth place, Emma Foreman. Fifth place, Emily Witt. Class 6, we have 3 entries. Nick Bernowitz with a calf weighing 531. Brayton Hayes with a calf weighing 559. And Ty Jenkins with a calf weighing 560.
Really smooth, balanced kind of a calf to start out here. One that doesn't have that real jack neck to him, but I think it's just enough in terms of his length and extension that he really fills in nice about that shoulder. Down low in his rib, I really like. I think up high, I'd like to just see him fill in just a little bit more right there and behind that top of that shoulder. But he's one that really's got a lot of expansion to that rib cage. He's got a lot of softness in that middle 1/3. He's definitely the one as we step in behind. He carries forth a lot of natural shape and dimension down his top and into his hip. He's one too that I feel that really kind of reaches and really gets out there and follows his tracks quite nicely. Young man brings us a calf that has a super good, really like this one for his length and his extension that he brings forward. He's kind of a fairly smooth shoulder kind of a calf. Certainly it could be open him up and give him a little bit more rib and middle 1/3, yeah, but I think that'll come in due time. He's a long spine, long hip kind of a calf too. I think he's one that follows up our class winner quite easily. Young man's red calf. Stout. This one's really stout. You have to admire him for the amount of muscling that he brings forward overall, but for me, he just doesn't put things together as easily and as smooth and balanced as I'd like to see him. He's a little bit more porous about that shoulder. We admire him in terms of his rib shape and his depth of body. Again, he's one that's got a tremendous amount of top shape into that loin and into that hip, and as you study him from behind, extremely powerful from center of staple to center of staple. For me, I think he's just a little bit extreme as for where he's going to end up as he progresses forward in terms of his feet and leg structure.
First place, Brayton Hayes. Second place, Nick Bernadowicz. Third place, Ty Jenkins. Class 7, we have 3 entries. Brantley Ball with a calf weighing 574. Denise Jenkins with a calf weighing 590. Carson Sherman with a calf weighing 595.
man brings us a shorthorn influence calf that certainly has a lot of refinement about that front 1/3. You talk about just a very youthful calf that still has that real length and extension and cleanness about that neck pattern, but still stays very clean into that shoulder. One that certainly, too, opens up with some rib shape and natural dimension. He's a bigger scale kind of a calf, but I think still yet he's got enough to him in terms of his softness of his middle 1/3 and his hip to really catch up to that frame. He's one that I think as we step in behind him, is he the stoutest? No, I don't think he is the stoutest. He's got a ton of hair on him, but I think certainly he's one that's easy doing and he's going to get there as he progresses. One that I really like on the ground in terms of how he reaches and gets off of both ends. Young man's Hereford calf. That we need to talk about in terms of just having, that ideal aspect of things in terms of dimension and shape that he brings forth. He is the show calf in terms of the Hereford breed. Does he stack up to these crossbreds? Certainly not. Jet front end, he doesn't have all the hair, but I'll tell you what, this calf lines up pretty nice. He's got some extension to that front 1/3. He's fairly smooth shoulder. I think he's adequate in terms of his rib shape. It's really how you like it. When I step in behind him, this guy has a tremendous amount of shape out the backside of that shoulder, down into his loin and in through his hip. Certainly he carries it down all the way to the ground. Just like to see this one just kind of get going a little bit easier overall. Young lady's black calf. One that comes out here certainly has some style, has some length and extension to that front 1/3. For me, he just doesn't balance. He's a little coarser in his overall design. He doesn't tie in as nice about that shoulder from his neck. And their back, he just gets a little bit flatter and tighter in that rib cage. For one, he's one that just doesn't open up with as much shape in his loins and in his hip structure. He gets a little flatter and a little bit more narrow at the ground in terms of his face width.
First place went to Brantley Ball. Second place, Carson Foreman. Third place, Denise Jenkins. Class 8, we have one entry for our coder with a calf weighing 634. The Old Timer Show, our second annual Old Timer Show, will be at 5 p.m. today here in the Cow Palace. We have entries in silly and serious of all species, so just make sure that you come on out and watch that show. It is sponsored by Appalachian Country Real Estate, Nikki Moon, and Laurie Casamano.
Check. Play part calf out here that certainly has some dimensional shape and rib to it. I'd like to see maybe just come together just a little bit easier and smoother, but certainly he's one that's got some smoothness about that shoulder. Could like to see him open up in terms of that rib shape just a little bit easier in terms of that tune out of that spine. He's one that carries for us some natural depth of body. As you step in behind him, he's got a lot of shape down his top. He runs off just a little bit. Like to maybe pick that pin, set it up, set that tail head down just a little bit more. But the way is he a style.
I didn't get these though.
I think he's a
But it's
calf
just
that's
Laura
going to be
and I'll give him to
easy
them.
feeding. He's going to grow well. I think look forward to this one next year.
First place went to Broward Coger. We're now ready to select your champion private market share. We need back in the ring Stephen Hauser, Lila Riley, Kaden Boyer, Brayden Hayes, Brantley Ball, and Briar Covert.
These young exhibitors bring forth their prospective calves, for Preston County Buckwheat Festival. It's fast years next year. I think we got a pretty good group of calves all the way from the beginning to the end. Certainly in different growth stages and progression of condition. But I think there's two calves out here. A couple of things we got to keep in mind is we certainly need to read these calves. Hopefully have the 100 pounds with their frame scale. At the same time, we need to have them sound-footed. These calves are just starting out. They need to be able to stay sound all the way up as they progress and put more weight on and get around the ring and get to the feet bump overall. But I think there's two calves that certainly progress forward. I think would be something to see next year as fast years for me. But at the same time, we got a whole big group of calves that are pretty good. Let's go ahead and give these young exhibitors a big round of applause, and I'll select your champion under your cross-section.
Your grand champion prospect markets here went to Brayton Hayes, winning back in the ring for Nautilus. Reserve champion went to David Boyer. We're ready to start our feeder calf heifer show. First, in class 9, we have 3 and 3. PG Show Cattle with the heifer weighing 406. Kagan Boyard with the heifer weighing 415. And Jason Cleary with a heifer weighing 424.
Hold on just a second.
At the conclusion of the heifer show, we'll go into a breeding sheep and goat show.
I'm here all day.
brings us a heifer that I think is a little bit more complete in her overall design and makeup. She's one that I think just balances up and really has a lot of style to her. She's very feminine-headed and feminine-fronted in terms of that neck extension and that shoulder pattern. She's one that opens up with some rib shape. She's certainly a big square top, square hip kind of a female. I think she's adequate in terms of the say when you produce anything of purebreds or show steers. I think she's stout enough. White Park heifer comes out next, one that I think just has a little bit more maternal aspects of things in comparison to the black cat that rounds out the class. This heifer here certainly has that femininity about her front 1/3. She's fairly smooth shouldered. She's got some rib shape to her. We just like to maybe relax her in terms of her spine and how she gets around the ring. But she's got a square hip in her. She's a female that really kind of gets around quite easily overall. The young lady's black calf rounding out the class, one that for me is just a little bit coarser in its overall design and layout. Certainly one that's got a lot of style from the side profile. She's got that feminine front end into that length and extension. But for me, she just doesn't have the angularity about her shoulder. She does in terms of her rib shape, but for me, she just doesn't get out and quite as easily about her knee and really reach forward. She comes off of those hind legs and once the comes dropping that pin set just a little bit overall for me. She's stout, she's got some femininity about her, but just like to change her structural design.
First place went to Caden Collier. Second place, Jason Cleary. Third place, PG Showcapper. Class 10, we have 4 entries. Adrian Bernadowicz with the heifer weighing 439. PG Showcattle with the heifer weighing 447. Brandon Ball with the heifer weighing 462. And PG Showcattle with the calf weighing 466.
Got it?
Certainly, I think, are really square and really like the lines and balance that they both bring forth. I like that you use the gray ball heifer to start out, one that I think just comes together just a little bit more rugged and durable in terms of her bone structure, her skeletal width that she brings forth. She's one that's a little bit wider based out the ground as you watch her. She goes away from you. She's one that still brings forth some femininity. We like her in terms of her head pattern and the length and extension to her neck. For me, maybe we'd like to smooth her up in terms of how that neck joins into that shoulder. But she opens up with a nice rib shape. She stays very adequate in terms of her depth of body overall. She's a big top, big hip kind of a female that again carries forth a lot of dimension all the way to the ground. The young man, shorthorn influence female, one that certainly I really like in terms of how refined and feminine-headed she is. She's very long and lean about that neck and still lays in nice and smooth about that shoulder. She's ideal in terms of her rib shape and her depth of body. For me, she's maybe just not quite as stout and powerful, especially in that top line and into her hip structure in comparison to the young ladies calf that we use to lead off. She's also one that as you watch her as she goes away, she's a little bit more narrow or based down to the ground for me to move her into that first hole. The young lady's black hog calf, pretty stylish of a calf in terms of that chrome pattern. One that's really, really green. I think as we really study this one and think about it as this one's going to progress forward, boy, she's really stylish. You know, we like her. She's really up-headed. I think she lays in and comes out of that shoulder pretty nice. Certainly she gets a little tighter in terms of that rib shape, but that's going to come as she progresses forward and gets more growth and stuff. I think she brings forward a lot of natural width and power into a big square hip overall. She's one that I think is pretty short-footed. And kind of a female that's got a progressive future. The young lady's calf, one that just comes at you a little bit plainer, just a little bit more of a commercialized kind of a calf. The black body calf certainly I think has a lot of femininity about her. She's got that rude-cow appearance in terms of her rib shape and her depth of body. She just needs to be a little bit stouter, a little bit more rugged in terms of her bone and foot size for her.
First place went to PG Show Cattle. Second place, Brittany Wall. Third place, PG Show Cattle. Fourth place, Adrian Bernardovich. Class 11, we have 4 entries. Alyssa Friend with a heifer weighing 474. Riley Mayfield with a heifer weighing 478. Julia Phillips with a heifer weighing 484. And WVU Reedsville Farm with a heifer weighing 484.
young man brings us a hamper that's certainly a little bit more modern in her overall design and growth pattern, but I think that she's one that really balances up quite nice and comes in a pretty complete package. One that I think still has femininity in terms of that front 1/3, very smooth shoulder, kind of a female that opens up with some rib shape. She's got some natural width and power down at top and into her hip, big square hip in her. She's one that I think certainly comes off of both ends with a lot of ease. The young lady brings us certainly the one that's a little bit higher performing. Stressing to me, she's all Angus. That's cool. We got a lot of maternal aspect to her. Maybe we'd like this one in terms of just not 1/3 being just a little bit more angular, a little bit more extended than that heifer that leads off. But for me, she's just a little bit more refined about her overall structure. She's not as bold in terms of the ruggedness of that skeleton. She's a little bit more lighter in terms of that bone and that foot size, but you really admire her in terms of her rib shape, her depth of body. She's one that maybe just narrows up a little bit at the ground as she gets out on the move. Young man smoke heifer one. Again, we talk about performance. High growth, high performance kind of a female that's a little bit more commercialized. One that I think still has that femininity in that front 1/3. She's fairly smooth shoulder. She's really green, but I think she brings forth some rib shapes and depth of body. What I like about this one in comparison to her black quality round out class, she's a little bigger hip. She's a little square into that pin set for me. I think she just gets out and has a little bit more squareness down at the ground. Young lady's black quality calf one, and again, just not quite as balanced and as smooth as how she's put together. This one, I just like to see that neck joined into that shoulder just a little bit easier. I'd like to see her open up with a little bit more rib shape right there in behind that shoulder. I think she's adequate in terms of depth of body. We just like to stouten her out, give her a little bit more natural width down her top. Pick her up in her pin set, level her out in her hip, overall, and down to the ground, just get a lot more bone and foot size to really stouten her up overall.
First place, Legend Riley Mayfield. Second place, Julia Phillips. Third place, WVU Greenfield Farm. Fourth place, Alyssa Frank. Well, we have 2 entries. Aubrey Funk with the heifer weighing 550. James Strasser with the heifer weighing 551.
Oh no, did I forget? Who was champion this year? Laura, right? Leader here was Laura. Hey, Natalie. She's up there. Laura.
Young man brings us a heifer just really stout and rugged in terms of her overall design. One that I think still has some femininity about that front 1/3 in terms of her neck extension. She's fairly smooth shouldered. I like her in terms of her rib shape. She's one that too carries a lot of shape and dimension down her top into a big stout hip. If I were to change her just a little bit, I maybe want to set that tail head down just a little bit more. And then at the same time, I question the inflammation in her hock. Hopefully that's just a small injury that's going to be corrected, but certainly she's one that really gets out and gets some flexibility. The young lady brings us a white part female that I think certainly has a to her. She's got that brute cow prospect. She's feminine on it. She's smooth shoulder. She's one that's got some rib shape at the body, just like stout opportunities at the top shape. Bring her pin set up, let her out a little bit more on the hooks for the pins overall. We're making a move into that first one.
First place went to Jay Strasser. Second place, Aubrey. Class 13, we have 2 entries. Lennox Farms with a heifer weighing 638. White House Cattle with a heifer weighing 663.
Young lady brings us a heifer that just has a tremendous amount of power and width in her skeletal design, but again, one that I think still has a lot of femininity about her. She's looking a little bit more refined out her head. She's a big, bold-chested kind of a female that I think still has that softness and opens up her that shoulder through her rib shape. She's a big top female, a big square hip that's really wide and her pin's thick. She's a female too, where I think this kind of really gets around the ring and has a lot of flex and pushing all the way down into a fast influence calf. Yeah, he brought us one a little bit earlier. He's bringing us one again that, we really admire this young man's calves in terms of the femininity that he brings forth, the refinement to that front 1/3. Just a really nice youthful kind of a head that really has some length and extension to that neck, but still yet really kind of flows and blends into that shoulder quite easily. Then we'll talk about heifers that got a lot of rib shape and depth of body that's very uniform, and yet still adequate in terms of their dimension down her top and into her hips. Again, this is one that, I guess got paired up with one that's just a little bit stouter and bigger boned overall.
First place went to White House Cattle. Second place, Lennox Farms. Class 14, we have 1 entry. White Mark Cattle with a heifer weighing 725.
The breeding sheep and goat show will start at roughly 4 to 5 to give time for pictures for the feeder heifers.
It's an effort that's really square and angular in our lines. One again that I think really sets forth a lot of style from the side profile when we talk about how that neck comes out, that shoulder. She's one that's very smooth in terms of how that rib cage comes out, the backside of that flank. One that I think just has a lot of shape down her top and into her hip, and I think she's one that still comes around and has a lot of flexibility and cushion as she gets around and sets down into the ring.
First place went to White Mark Cattle. We're ready to select your champion feeder heifer calf. Waiting back in the ring, Caden Boyer, PG Show Cattle, Riley Mayfield, James Strasser, White House Cattle, and White Mark Cattle.
that certainly are dual purpose. Those that I think can go out and, it's bred right and produce some females that has replacements, or, if you want to take them forth and breed them as for your show steers. I think the young man's black cat here coming out of that first class, one is very elegant and refined out that front 1/3. She's very smooth shouldered, still adequate in terms of her rib shape. She's really stout enough. There's some other ones that are certainly stouter than her, but I think she's one that's probably the most maternal in terms of her overall design of refinement and just the way that she lays in, very nice and smooth. Young lady's gray, balding, one that we talked about having a little bit more shape and dimension up high, out of the hip, maybe one that I'd like to change in terms of her shoulder pattern a little bit, but certainly another one of those females that I think, again, dual purpose. If we want to go and try to produce a heifer, a pretty cool looking state type of heifer, I think she's durable enough to do that. The young man brings us a black heifer that, again, probably more similar in style as our young man's black heifer in the front, maybe just a little bit more maternal in comparison to some other ones in here. Just a little bit more refined in terms of her overall makeup, in terms of her bone and foot size, which is really deep rib, big body kind of a female, but still has some dimensional shape to her. Young man brings us another one that's really stout, lying about her structural design. One that certainly carries forth some ruggedness, opens up this rib shape, really stout in terms of that top shape. Certainly she's one that has the bone and the foot size. Certainly there's some things that we'd like to change about her, in terms of that layout of that shoulder a little bit, but I think she comes in here and fits nicely in the line. The young lady's big black calf, one that's got a super style and really up-headed. That neck comes out of the top of that shoulder, really smooth shoulder, big rib kind of a female. She's a little bit more toned, certainly. She's big and stout in her big hip, big bone, big footed kind of a female. I still feel that she's one that was bred right to still produce a female. The young man's pruned up, stylish kind of a female here, rounding out this whole division. One that I think come out here, certainly again has some style from the side profile. I think she's feminine enough in terms of her refinement about her head, the way the neck joins into that shoulder. She's a little flatter right in behind her shoulder than what I'd like to see, but I think she's adequate in terms of her rib shape and depth of body. She's really square, strong in her top and out into her loin and tail head. She's one that I think just squares up a little better than some down at the ground as she has to lead. Now, a really nice group of heifers out here. Let's go ahead and give them a round of applause and I'll select the champion of this race.
Your grand champion feeder heifer calf went to Katie Lawyer. Your reserve champion feeder heifer calf went to White Mark Cow. I'm going to take about a 10-minute break for some pictures, and then they're going to start into the breeding goat and sheep show, starting with goats.